In our Fox Roundup this hour, for the first time in 2 decades, Texas drops from the #1 spot of having the most executions. It had the lowest number of executions in 20 years. Georgia's 9 executions this year surpassed the Lone Star State's record low number of 7. So does this mean the murder rate is down, or are juries increasingly going with alternatives to the ultimate punishment? That's our topic this half hour, and we want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also weigh in on Twitter. Just send me a tweet at Sally Mack, Fox 26. Joining us live in the newsroom today is our panel led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tridico. We have public policy analyst, Jackie Valley, and Democratic media consultant, Mustafa Tamiz. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so what do you guys think about this? Certainly the murder rate isn't down a lot, and that's not the reason for this, right?
The murder rate generally is down a little bit, but what we have seen is that when we finally got the sentencing option of life without parole in Texas, and the Harris County District Attorney's Office led the charge in objecting to life without parole for years, once the legislature passed that and we got that as a sentencing option, juries generally have gone with life without parole as an option because it is very difficult to give somebody, Jackie Valley, a death sentence.
Yes, and the murder rate has decreased generally across the nation, with notable exceptions in Baltimore City, Chicago, and D.C. But the general trend has been the murder rate has gone down. In Texas in particular, compared to 1991, we had 608 murders, and we only have 303 in 2015. So that is part of the reason that's going on. You're also seeing a different attitude in the way that people are approaching these sentences, like you described in your opening statements. So I do believe the combination of the two is why we're now number 2, and Georgia has passed us.
What we have seen, and when you do what I do for a living, and if you've ever stood next to someone when a judge says, "I sentence you to death," you don't understand what pressure really is. And that's what juries go through every day when they have to make life and death decisions like this. And what we've seen is that juries don't really want to make those decisions that way. And when you give them that option of life without parole, most of those cases they'll say, "We'll go with life without parole."
Yeah, and look, I mean, since the late 80s and the Innocence Project started, almost 350 people that were sentenced to death were found innocent because we found some DNA evidence after the fact that led to being them innocent. So they would have been executed if it wasn't for the Innocence Project, and people have learned that. And so we're learning a lot of things now, that the death penalty may not be the best option, and juries are learning that as well. And so if there's anything I want to be 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 50th in the nation for, is the death penalty. I'd rather be #1 for education and last for death penalty.
Let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay, let's pull up some tweets here. First one from the Associated Press. We're going to show you this graph that they put out when they tweeted out their headline, Texas losing its distinction as the nation's leading death penalty state. Oh, well, we don't have it. Well, anyway, their graphic showed that it basically peaked in the year 2000, where we had about 40 executions, and then it's remained steady until this low this last year of just 7. Other people saying that, pointing out that Texas has still executed the most overall since the death penalty was reinstated. And so this is, for people who are against the death penalty, this isn't necessarily something that they're celebrating.
Well, Texas was on a fast lane for many years with executions, and I don't think anybody it'll be a very, very long time before anybody catches the state of Texas with the number of executions that we've already had. And that's really not the issue. You can't go back historically and look at what we've done. But you see the trend changing, and we've argued for years from my side of the bar that if you gave life without parole, you would see exactly what's happening now, because that sentencing option is a better option in most cases. That doesn't mean that there aren't cases where the death penalty is deserved.
Yes, and as we've discussed in previous episodes or previous segments, we've seen that it is much more costly to have someone on death row than to have them in other places in the incarceration system. So that's part of what's going on as well. You're also seeing that you have studies that say, look, if you have like swifter or more strict penalties, that you will see a decrease. So people are saying, well, that's part of the reason that this is happening as well. So with all of that being said, you're looking at some kind of a relief in the budget system with the new sentencing that could go from life being on death row versus being on death row, but you're also looking at a change in this new millennial and newer people coming to the jury system.
Stop.
Look, I think it's time that we have deep systemic changes in our judiciary system, in our penal system, and it's time that we start moving in with our new DA. Hopefully we'll start seeing more of that in our Harris County.
And we're going to be talking about that in the next hour.
I'm setting it up. I'm setting it up.
Come on, man.
That was a great segue.
I'm like segueing in.
That was a pretty good segue. Let me just close it out with this. Having tried capital murder cases, there isn't anything. Nobody understands what pressure is until you, like I said, stand next to somebody when a judge sentences them to death. And talking to juries after they go through that process, it is the most heartfelt thing a jury goes through when they have to make life and death decisions. Life without parole was the best sentencing option in the state of Texas ever made when they added that as a sentencing option and gave juries an option other than that ultimate decision. We'll leave it right there, and we'll be back in 15 minutes with another really good topic.
All right. Thanks, guys, so much.